Hey YouTube, and welcome to Worship Society. Today, we're starting a 10-week video series on the top 10 worshipers in the Bible. We're going to be starting with Daniel right after this intro. Welcome back. So, our first worshiper in the Bible for our top 10 worshipers is Daniel. I believe Daniel definitely belongs on this list, and I'm going to give you 3 points. Point number 1, Daniel's resolve. Daniel's resolve comes from chapter 1 in the book of Daniel. In Daniel chapter 1, verse 11, let's see what he says. But Daniel said to the overseers, whom commanders of the officials had appointed over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, please test your servants for 10 days, and let us be given some vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then let our appearance be observed in your presence, and the appearance of the youths who have eaten from the king's choice food, and deal with your servants according to what you see. So Daniel has some wisdom here. He wants to show God's awesome power that he and his friends can sit there and take in just vegetables and water for 10 days. And he knows that at the end of this, through his time of prayer and through his worship, that God will provide him the strength and the health and the wisdom and the mindset that will bring him above all these other people. So him and his 3 friends go on this journey together, that in 10 days we're going to see in verse 17 what comes about. So let's look at verse 17. As for these 4 youth, God gave knowledge and intelligence in every branch of literacy, wisdom. Daniel even understood all kinds of visions and dreams. Now that last part of visions and dreams is what we're going to get into here in point number 2. And that is Daniel's attitude of gratitude. Now if you watched our first video, we talked about how important an attitude of gratitude is. And we're going to take a look at Daniel here and where his attitude of gratitude comes in. So let's give you a little backstory. So King Nebuchadnezzar has a dream, and he just wants to have the meaning of the dream, and he brings in all these scribes and wise men and sorcerers to tell him, 1, what the dream was, and 2, what the meaning is. And so these people couldn't do it, and they claimed no one can do this. Only the gods can. Well, Daniel and his friends got a hold of this, and Daniel just immediately began to pray and try to gather wisdom, and we catch in to this vision, this attitude of gratitude, because God reveals the dream and the meaning of it. And so Daniel knows he's saved, he's good. And this is what Daniel does in Daniel chapter 2. Verses 20 and 23 is specifically the 2 verses I want to look at here on how he's giving thanks and praise to God for revealing that. Let's look at these 2 verses. So Daniel chapter 2 verse 20 says, let the name of God be praised forever and ever, for wisdom and power belongs to him. Skip down. He's continuing to praise through verse 21 and 22, but verse 23 goes in and it says, to you, O God of my fathers, I give thanks and praise. For you have given me wisdom and power, and even now you have made known to me what we have requested of you, for you have made known to us the king's matter. So going into this, Daniel takes time, prays, and then gets the answer, and then immediately goes into this praise and worship and being thankful for what God has done because he knows only God could have done this. And God saved him and his friends and all the people that are amongst him because God has revealed the king's dream and the meaning of it. Now, point number 3 goes into Daniel's confidence. Now, we're going to go to the number 1 most famous story of Daniel, and that is Daniel in the lion's den. But we're going to look at it and we're going to see what he does. Daniel is so confident in his prayer and his worship to God that he knows God is all powerful and will protect him, that there are people trying to find fault with Daniel, and Daniel has no fault. He's done nothing wrong. So they create the only thing they can think of to get Daniel on the bad side of the king. They trick the king into making a law that you can only worship king. And Daniel knows that's wrong. Daniel knows the only one to worship is his God, our God, the only God out there. And so Daniel's so confident that God's going to protect him that he opens up the windows. He goes up on his roof where everybody can see and hear him, and he begins to pray and worship God. Not the king, but God. And he knows that is going to be a problem, but he doesn't care because he has confidence in God, and God will protect him. So let's look at this. Daniel chapter 6, verse 7 and verse 10. All the commissioners of the king, the prefects and the seraphs and the high officials and the governors have consulted together that the king should establish a statute and enforce an injunction that anyone who makes a pension to any god or man besides you, O king, for 30 days shall be cast into the lion's den. So the king makes the decree, makes the law. He loves the idea of people worshiping him. We skip down to verse 10, and it says, now when Daniel knew that the document was signed, so the law had become in effect, he entered his house. Now in his roof chamber he had the windows open towards Jerusalem, and he continued kneeling on his knees 3 times a day, praying and giving thanks before his God, as he had been doing previously. So we know the end of the story. He gets thrown into the lion's den, and King Darius comes out and he says, Daniel, are you still alive after a full day of being down there? And he yells up, yes, I am. My God has saved me. And King Darius realizes that Daniel's God is the only God, and he decrees that we should worship this God. And so out of all of this, Daniel's confidence saves him yet again, and he gives praise and worship every day, 3 times a day, publicly, not privately, not behind a closed door, but he opens the door and he worships God out loud. And these 3 reasons are why I believe Daniel deserves to be on the top 10 list of the worshipers in the Bible. I hope you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned next.